Hi Tevia, how are you?
Hello.
So it's nice to have you here. Maybe for the audience who not already know you, could you give us like a short backstory to you?
Well, I was born with chronic illness, and my parents didn't want me to be in hospitals, on medications, with doctors my whole life. So they got me into Qigong. They got me into Qigong when I was 7 years old. And that was to strengthen my organs, strengthen my body, and also strengthen my spirit, because they didn't want me to be brought down by the difficulties and challenges that I faced as a young person growing up. And so that's how I got into Qigong. Fast forward later, I was in a brutal car accident. Doctors told me I had to have surgery on my spine. And I healed it with a simple Qigong exercise, and I never had surgery. And now my spine is in better shape than most people half my age. And I attribute that to Qigong. Since then, I've worked in a clinic in China working with patients with cancer, difficult to treat illnesses, with medical Qigong. And I've seen the incredible healing ability that Qigong has, and it's natural. It's something we can all access. And once you learn it, you don't need any money for it. So it's a beautiful, natural healing practice that anyone can do. And so that's a little bit about me. Currently, I still teach Qigong, White Tiger. We have tens of thousands of students around the world who practice Qigong with us. Millions of people have come to us, literally. So feel very blessed to be able to share this practice with so many people, and I want to reach a lot more. So that's a little bit about me.
Wow, that's already like a great takeoff. I would love to talk with you about like some of these points in particular, but maybe we can start with what is Qigong? And for people, this podcast is mainly for like beginner yoga teachers or people who's just starting out their yoga journey. And I really like this approach to be like super open-minded and like to integrate like a lot of different techniques and styles and things which can be beneficial. So maybe you can give us like a short wrap-up or overview. What is Qigong and where it's coming from?
So there's over 3,000 kinds of Qigong that are documented today. Within those 3,000 kinds, there are so many variations, so many systems with complete opposing views. And so trying to find the right one for you is like finding a needle in a haystack. Luckily, I've done years and years, decades of research on this topic to try to understand and categorize the different types of Qigong. But first, what is Qigong from a broad perspective? So we have to look at the character for Qi. The ancient character for Qi is made up of radicals. And those radicals are kernel, a rice kernel popping, and gas or air meeting. So a rice kernel popping and gas or air meeting, this creates combustion. That is Qi. It's a chemical reaction. You put two elements together and it creates energy. Okay. So you breathe in the air, they call that Kong Qi. That's the Qi of the air. You have Qi from the food. You have Qi from people. You have Qi from the sun. So you have all these different types of Qi. It's just energy. If you take a breath of air in, you're getting energy. If you eat some food, you're getting energy. So it's very easy for people to understand. It's not so mystical. Gong is the refined skill. So Qigong is the refined skill of working with energy. From a broad perspective, this is a general definition. When we delve deeper into Qigong, we have 5 main branches of Qigong. The oldest type of Qigong is over 5,000 years old, created by the Wu people. They were a tribal people, a shamanic people. Imagine 5,000 years ago, tribes sitting around a fire, dancing and playing music and getting into these deep trances. And they're doing these animal movements, these ritualistic animal movements, and they were gaining so much energy from those movements. And that was the very beginning of Qigong. That was the birth of Qigong. So they found when they got into these trances, they did these animal dances, they were getting so much energy, and it was such a powerful experience. You can just imagine that as a powerful experience. And so later it became more ritualized and formalized. And then about 2,000 years ago, a man named Hua Tuo, he was the Chinese medicine physician to the emperor. He started putting together Chinese medicine principles with these animal movements. And he started applying meridian theory, 5-element theory to this Qigong. And he created what's called medical Qigong, where it's based on health and healing. So he created what's called the 5-animal Qigong. And so that is within also what's called the Taoist lineage. So going back to those 5 main branches, you have Taoist, Confucianist, Buddhist, martial, and medical Qigong. So within those types, 5 main branches, there's different definitions of what Qigong is and what it means. And so traditional, say, Buddhist Qigong, their aim is to cultivate the spirit for transcendence or enlightenment, if you will, and otherwise used for martial protection. And the traditional Buddhists believe that the body is a hindrance towards spiritual enlightenment. Hence, they would sit in meditation for 15 hours a day. I've met some of those monks. And then you have the Taoists. The Taoists have an opposing view, but different view. And they believe that the body is intrinsic to attaining spiritual, that you must cultivate the body. And so the Taoists spent all their time focused on longevity and health so that they could live a long time and also go deeper with their practice. And then you have Confucianist Qigong. There's not a lot known about Confucianist Qigong. I've experienced it one time in my life, so I'm not an expert enough to comment on it. I don't really understand it. It's a bit of a mystery to me, but it has, what I do remember about it is it has music and some chanting and singing and some type of movement with that. I've just experienced it once. So then you have martial and medical Qigong. Martial Qigong is obviously for martial power. It's integrated into different martial arts systems. And then you have medical Qigong. Medical Qigong was designed, now I'm talking, when I say medical Qigong, I'm talking modern medical Qigong, post-cultural revolution Qigong. Modern medical Qigong is a synthesis of all styles of Qigong with the aim of medical treatment or healing. And I don't even like the word medical because it has a clinical connotation to it. So it's not necessarily a medical, but it's actually used in hospitals in China. So what I practice is I practice a form of Taoist, we call it longevity Qigong or medical Qigong under the Taoist branch. What's the difference between Taoist medical Qigong and say modern medical Qigong? Well, Taoist Qigong predates the Cultural Revolution. It goes back thousands of years. And you can apply it to modern times, but it's using ancient techniques. Where modern medical Qigong is a synthesis of all different styles. And the mantra in Taoist medical Qigong is body, breath, spirit. The mantra in modern medical Qigong is body, breath, mind.
Okay, so a big difference.
Yes, there's a big difference. Because we have to understand during the Cultural Revolution, when they created modern medical Qigong, they wanted to take out any connotation, any religious connotation, any connection to the actual ancient culture was eliminated from all things such as Chinese medicine, Qigong, and they created 4 standardized styles of Qigong that were only allowed to be taught by anyone. And their purpose, I don't believe was evil. Some people think it was an evil purpose, but no, I think it was actually, they had good intention. Their purpose was to create a cheap form of healthcare for the masses, because at that time in China, it was very poor. They didn't have much money. And so they created this modern medical Qigong system. And that's why everybody's heard of, say, the 8 pieces of brocade, right? That's the most common form of medical Qigong that was created, that was standardized. When I say created, it was created before the Cultural Revolution, but that they standardized it. They took out any connection to the spirit and they made it easy so that anyone could do it. Because some of the Taoist Qigong or the Buddhist Qigong was more challenging and more difficult. So I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm saying you have to understand the context behind the different styles of Qigong. Taoist Qigong is based on nature. So natural principles based on nature, meaning the 5-element theory. And we cultivate the 3 treasures, the Jing, Qi, and Shen. The Jing essentially is your, let's say, your essence or your genes. The Qi is your energy, and the spirit is your Shen. And so the Taoists believe there's no separation between the spirit and the body. So, and if we look at modern neuroscience, that rings true, even modern sports science. So if we look at the nervous system, if you have emotions, that's going to change the fascia, which is the tissue in your body. And I can go into that later if you'd like. But
Yeah,
it
for sure.
creates fascial changes. So picture the fascia is just underneath the skin. It's this spidery, fibery, gluey web that wraps around the muscles, wraps around the bone, and becomes the bone itself. It even wraps around the organs. So when you go through emotions, that fascia can tighten, brace itself, like in fear or anger. And when you're relaxed, the fascia relaxes and the body relaxes. And so the emotions have definitive effect on the actual physical body. So it's provable that what the Taoists were saying, the spirit is intrinsically connected to the physical body. There's no separation. So when we work on the spirit, we're working on the body and the spirit at the same time. When we work on the body, we're working on the body and the spirit. Let's say you have back pain, right? That back pain, we don't just look at that as back pain. That's also causing emotions. And the emotions are connected with the kidneys of the lower back. And so we look at the organs, we look at the bones, we look at the meridians, we look at the emotions. We look at all these things and paint a whole picture, a holistic picture. That's the difference between Taoist medical Qigong and other styles of medical Qigong.
Super interesting. This is like a super, super broad overview. For sure you could go in detail, like on point, but it's like, I think, super nice for people who haven't had yet like a connection to Qigong, because most people nowadays have like, just like, I think a lot of people know more or less how it looks like, or have maybe like attended to one class, but thanks to your like introduction now, I think it's much more interesting to have a deeper look on that, because I see a lot of like relations even like to modern yoga, or like the how yoga got like cultivated over time, and even these different kind of styles have like really, really interesting like background. What I would like to go deeper into this Taoist medical Qigong. When you practice nowadays, and you already said this connection between like modern science is even like interesting for you, how do you combine these 2 parts? I mean, you practice a really ancient practice, right? But you still stay open for this modern approaches.
Well, that's a great question. So what I did is I didn't alter the Qigong itself. What I did is I retained and kept the original Qigong. And what I found is the explanation. I could explain it from a neuroscience perspective. So the example I gave you of the fascia, that's sports science. That's something that everyone can understand, and it's provable. So I basically prove my point with modern scientific explanations, but I don't change the Qigong itself with the science. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think this is like the super interesting part about like traditions and practices like this, right? That you can prove them nowadays with stuff like this, and you can go deeper into that. So how do your practice look like in a normal day-to-day life?
My typical practice, well, every morning I start with Qigong. Before I get out of bed, I'm doing Qigong. I'm doing eye Qigong massage and exercises. I do cleansing breath before I get out of bed, and I do some Dantian Qigong. After that, I get out of bed, I brush my teeth and do what I need to do, and then I have a cup of water, and then I go out and I do my Qigong, my dynamic Qigong practice with standing Qigong. That dynamic Qigong can contain, say, our Dragon Meridian Qigong, and then I'll go into some of our either our 5-element Qigong, a trigram Qigong, depends on what I need, or our 5-animal Qigong. Depends on what I need in that moment. And so I have a general schedule where I rotate between them, but it depends on what I need in that moment. So that's where we get into prescriptive Qigong, where medical Qigong is really fascinating in that we can create prescriptions like medicine for what our body needs in that moment based on Chinese medicine principles, based on what we actually need. So we're actually creating what we need in that moment. And so we bring balance to the body. So my aim with each practice is to get complete circulation and flow of qi to all the organs through all the meridians, and then to bring balance. And so what I love about our Qigong is it brings a full range of motion, and then it also brings emotional balance. So if I have maybe anxiety that day or excessive stress or frustration, I can do the Qigong to help balance those emotions and bring myself into equilibrium. And so then throughout my day, I do Qigong. Like, let's say I've been working at the computer for a while. I'll get up and do even 10 minutes of Qigong to release any pain in my back from sitting, or wrist pain, finger pain, joint pain, and move the body and get the qi flowing again. Or if I'm going through emotions throughout the day, I'll take more time to do Qigong. So I remember I went to my master one time. I was feeling really, really stressed with a lot of the work I was doing. I was like, what should I do? He's like, do more Qigong.
Okay, pretty straightforward.
So that's what I did. The more stressed you are, the more you need more Qigong to balance, because that's the goal, is balance. So, and then in the evening at sunset, when the sun sets, I like to do Qigong if I have time. And then as I fall asleep, I do Qigong. So I do Qigong in concentrated sessions, and then I do Qigong in spontaneous spurts throughout the day.
What I really like about that is that you know, it's a kind of thing which makes your life definitely better, but you make it really accessible for a lot of people, because I think even nowadays it's to like help people picking up from like bad emotions, or like even this kind of stuff like social anxiety and all of this. It's like super, super important and super interesting. And it sounds like you can really integrate this into your day-to-day life with like simple stuff and not doing it too complex, making it like a special kind of getting away from things, you know? What I see a lot in, like, for example, modern yoga is that people maybe try to escape their normal day-to-day life, because they do like this one yoga class a week or this 2 yoga classes a week, and they use this as a kind of coping. And I'm pretty sure you can do this with everything, with meditation, with Qigong for sure. But it's like something different if you can like integrate it in your day-to-day life.
Yes.
What do you think would be like things you would give like a total beginner or people who maybe would like to try this out to like integrate this in their life?
What I do with total beginners is I have them start with our beginners courses. Actually, we have a beginners course, and that brings them through the fundamentals, some easy exercises that they can start to feel qi right away, that they can just immerse themselves into, and without overcomplicating things. I think one of the mistakes that a lot of beginners make is they try to overcomplicate it, get into really advanced Qigong too quick, and that doesn't do them any justice. And so you need to just focus on some simple fundamentals at first, and that is going to make all the difference. And so that's what we do, is we just bring you into the simple fundamentals, like basic breathing techniques of Qigong, basic Qigong breathing techniques, basic stances of Qigong, basic simple movements in Qigong, and then start to gradually, we call that scaffolding, combining those things. So we work in Qigong on 3 levels. We work on the body, the breath, and the spirit. That's the Jing, Qi, and Shen, the 3 treasures. So first, we want to work on body alignment, getting the proper body alignments and body mechanics so that you're creating that cup. Now, once you have the proper body mechanics and body alignments, then we can fill that cup with the qi, which is the second level, where now we add the breath and we harmonize the breath with the movement. So you're essentially synchronizing the breath with the movement so that the breath becomes the engine of the movement. And then when we have those 2 components put together, the last stage is to put the spirit. And that's your intention. Focusing your intention. How are you going to focus the intention? Whether you have two different general approaches. Number one is sensing, like sensing energy. This is a more yin, more passive way. And then you have a more yang, more concentrated way where you're focusing on a specific intention. Say, for example, I'm trying to warm my hands and feet. I'm trying to bring warmth to my hands and feet. So concentrating the spirit with that intention of moving the chi to the extremities. So that's an example of how we bring a beginner in right from the beginning.
Absolutely makes sense to me. I think what's like super interesting is this relation between this and yoga. Because I see like a lot of things what you say, even like bringing awareness to special body parts, or like first like starting out with the pranayama, with the breathing exercises, or like with how to like adjust the standing postures, right? Is like the basics which like can make a big change in normal people's life in nowadays society. Like you said, if you sit a lot or if you're like a lot in desk work, this is something which can like already make like a big change in like your energetic levels. So I find it really interesting that there's this kind of relation. Have you tried yoga in any kind of way, or have teach like people to integrate this in their yoga practice?
Yeah, I mean, big time. I mean, my mother was a Kundalini yoga teacher when I was young.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of relations to that.
And my father did both Qigong and yoga growing up. So I had a lot of exposure to yoga. I did tons and tons of yoga classes. I've done Ashtanga yoga, Kundalini yoga, Hatha yoga, Yin yoga, pretty much most general types of yoga. So I have good experience, I think, with it. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but enough that I have some decent experience. And I've worked with a lot of yoga schools. So one of the things that I couldn't help but notice is the amount of yoga teachers that were coming into my classes to learn Qigong. It was undeniable. So there was a big draw. And so I started researching a lot, and I started talking to my master about that. He said, actually, the yogis have been mixing with the Taoist Qigong for a long time. It's like, so India is right next to China, and they were traveling through, these kind of nomadic yogis were traveling through, and then they were hanging out with the Taoists in the mountains, and they were exchanging practices. So I actually have Qigong where you'll see some yogic influence, such as the 5-element Qigong. You'll see some real similarities. So I put out a book, Qigong for Yogis, because I thought I saw so many similarities and crossovers. And so I actually show how the postures are so similar, some of them.
Mm-hmm.
But Qigong is like a moving yoga. It's like constantly moving. It's continuously flowing. That is maybe a difference of it. But so what we did is, what we did is one of our teachers from China, who's a White Tiger Qigong teacher, she's also a yoga teacher. She wanted to put together the 5-element Qigong with yoga. So we put out Qigong Yoga Fusion of 5-element Qigong and yoga. And so what she did is created a complementary sequence of yoga and Qigong movements together with the 5-element Qigong together. And it's a really beautiful course. It's actually, believe it or not, it's our like #1 selling course on our website.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, we have thousands and thousands of students in that course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think there's a huge calling for that. And they're very complementary practices. So I really enjoy both practices.
Yeah, that's what I was seeing. I think there's a lot from Qigong you can draw into yoga, and what you can maybe use even like nowadays when you see, like I said, I think again, like in nowadays society, a lot of people get like a lot of dogmatic thoughts about stuff, and it always have to be like this or that. But what I really like is to bring things back to the ancient like aspect of like helping people with that, and like making it more like a kind of toolkit you can use in your day-to-day life. And I see a lot of yoga teachers maybe needing like a kind of practice like Qigong, or like can integrate this in their kind of style. Can you send me the link to your book? So I would love to like link it below in the show notes for sure. I think this could be like super interesting for the audience as well.
Absolutely. Yes.
If people would like to get to know more about you, and like you already called the White Tiger, how could they get in touch with you? Or how can they get more of this kind of content from you?
Well, number one, we have over 570 videos on YouTube for free that
Wow,
anybody
okay.
can watch. It's a lot of videos.
It's great to get into it, yeah.
Yeah, so that is a good entry point if somebody didn't want to spend any money. We have free ebooks too. We have a free 5-day challenge on our website, which I recommend to sign up for that free 5-day challenge. And then if they want to actually get a little more serious and not just scratch the surface, then I recommend one of our online courses. Well, if your listeners are in yoga, I think the the Qigong Yoga Fusion is a great entry point. And I can put a link. So. And then if they want to get really serious into it, we have master courses where we go deep in depth. So the master courses where we have level 1 through 4. Level 1 is the body. Level 2 is the breath. Level 3 is the spirit. Level 4 is the medical Qigong, where you learn to create prescriptions. You learn Chinese fundamentals, Chinese medicine fundamentals, and fascia. There's a whole course on fascia, and then integrating that. And then if they want to get even more serious, want to spread White Tiger Qigong, we have a teacher training, which I worked with education experts from Harvard University and Stanford University to create a university-style curriculum to help people learn how to teach really deeply. And I say, even if you don't want to teach, if you just want to learn how to teach yourself, we give you the tools to do that in that course. So yeah, we have multiple different systems of Qigong within White Tiger. We have a dynamic flowing Qigong called 8 trigram Qigong. It's our most flowy Qigong. If you want one more that's similar to yoga, try the 5-element Qigong. That has these deep stances and deep stretching coupled with deep breathing techniques. And then the basic general Qigong is the Dragon Meridian Qigong, is maybe the easiest one to get into. And then we have the 5-animal Qigong, like I'm teaching in-person courses. I teach the 5-animal Qigong here in Vietnam at a beautiful mineral hot springs wellness center in the mountains with an organic farm. And it's a beautiful place on Japanese onsen spa on site, massage every day included. And you're like one of those Wagyu cows at the end of the course. But yeah, so I'm teaching the 5-animal Qigong in February here in Vietnam. It's a wonderful chance to meet in person. And so all amazing. These things, our website is whitetigirqigong.com. Qigong is, we spell it Qigong. So White Tiger, Qigong.com.
I will link it below for sure as well. And especially for this kind of retreat and teacher trainings, if you send me the links, I will link them below. This is like super interesting. And I think even like, talking to you, you can really feel about like the knowledge behind that and all the topics. So thank you so much for your time. This was like a super, super nice overview. And I think, if people would like to get to know more about that, they can like hit the link below. Thank you so much, dear.
Thank you so much. Okay. Bye-bye.